So let's talk about it, because this is not the history that we learned in US history class. Africans were not only targeted for their labor for the brute force, they were also targeted for their agricultural knowledge. Of course, there is some element of just critical mass here, but a lot of the slave trade was really focused on specific skills as well. For example, the Smithsonian looks at the cultivation of rice in the American South, specifically the Low Country, which drew a lot of its enslaved population from Upper Guinea, a land that had a very long history of rice cultivation and rice production. So in abducting adults from the continent, they were not only abducting labor, they were also abducting those skills and using those skills to build out the rice cultivation and rice production here in the US. Let's also not forget, plantations were not here and then the slaves came. Slaves built the plantations. If any of you are gardeners, you know how much work goes into preparing the land in order for a crop to not fail. Slavery was an economic system, and they weren't willing to just gamble away a couple seasons on inexperienced individuals. Did the upper elite of the South know how to grow rice? Probably not. Similarly, if we think about the transatlantic slave trade, the food served in the ships itself came from Africa. They had enough food to get out there, and then they needed to restock their wares with agricultural products and livestock on the way back. The people who were able to prepare the foods on the ship, the women that they abducted and enslaved. In her book, Eating While Black, Dr. Psyche Williams-Forson talks about how women brought that knowledge of cooking to the slave ships and then to the United States as well. These were foods that the Europeans and the American colonists had absolutely no idea what to do with. Things like sorghum, rice, yams, foods that were just completely unfamiliar to them. Along with those seeds and other certain foods that ended up becoming actually a big part of South American cuisine, things like peanuts and black-eyed peas, okra, watermelon. They also brought along a certain knowledge of cooking on how to cook these foods, things like grilling, slow cooking, roasting, methods and techniques that were adaptable to this new environment. There is a long history of devaluing the skills and the knowledge and expertise of marginalized communities in the United States. Communities including African Americans and women, and especially African American women. In cooking and in agriculture, enslaved Africans brought their skill to the United States. Not voluntarily, of course, we can never forget that piece, but these were not just numbers. These were people who had lived experience, people who were stolen from their homes, brought to this new place and had to figure out how to survive. And not just survive, there were slave rebellions and slave revolts and successful freedom seeking that was all enabled because of this knowledge of food. And we're going to be exploring these stories and more as we live create our Food, Social Change, and Political Revolution exhibit over on Instagram. Check it out. Follow along if you're interested in these histories and more.